Hello and welcome back to the Spotlight Games podcast. Today, we are bowing our heads and talking about the death of E3, what that might mean for this summer in gaming, and we're going to look back at our favorite E3 memories, and maybe there might be a little news to sprinkle in there. Only way to find out is to keep listening or to keep watching. As always, I am joined by my sweet dumpster boy.
Yeah, brother.
The clean, a face as clean as a baby's bottom.
I know, man.
How are
So
you?
what ended up, and this I think is a good conversation to ask you if this is something you also experienced, because you have much more facial hair than I did. Also, much thicker facial hair than I did. Also, much thicker other things than I do. We're not talking about bellies, folks.
We're not talking about dicks either.
So, like, one of the things the issue I'd been having was I'd be like drinking something, right?
Yes.
And then like my mustache, as crazy as it sounds, would get waterlogged, and I would do like this, and it would like drain. And I didn't know how to stop it. I finally was just so annoyed with it. Also, the hair started to curl up and get into my nose.
Yep.
And it was like constantly tickling, and then I'd get like water in it, and it would be like wet all the time. And it was just gross, man. Honestly, it was just fucking disgusting.
Yeah, for sure.
I had to get rid of it.
I never had the curling up into my, or I've never had the curling up into my nose problem. But if you don't trim it enough and it starts curling over your lip,
yeah,
that's when I noticed that I would get a little, as you put it, waterlogged.
Yeah,
I'd get some water in there. And yeah, there are times, especially like I'm brushing my teeth and I finish brushing my teeth and I'm just like drenched.
Yeah. I think that, but like the issue I was like running into is it would never grow thicker. It just kept growing longer, and I kept having to always trim it, but it never looked any better.
Yeah.
And it was just like I'm walking around with this disgusting mustache, and so here's the thing though. Went into the liquor store.
Yeah.
Patrick.
Oh, sure.
I got ID'd for the first time in like
no way
a couple of years. Yeah. I would like go in. They'd be like no one's brazen enough, I think, in today's times to just like walk into like an old people, like a nice liquor store and like try to get away with it,
Right.
Like you walk in, like people are just like, yeah, like, and also you got that gross mustache, and they're like, this motherfucker is definitely not underage. So like first I walked in, the guy's like, hey bud, gonna need to see that ID first.
That's
like, I mean, yeah, absolutely, dude. Like, no worries at all. But also, like, that's fucking weird, man. So yeah, I definitely like when I walked out of the bathroom, I like looked myself in the mirror, and I was like, you look like a fucking baby.
Yeah, goo goo gaga indeed. We're back. We're back.
God damn it, are we calling Louise again?
Maybe we might.
No.
Well, we might call her, but what I can tell you is that we have a lot of video game stuff to talk about, because this is the Spotlight Games podcast, where each week we spotlight the latest and the greatest in the world of video games. You can get it by subscribing to our YouTube channel at Spotlight Games Pod, or by searching for Spotlight Games in your favorite podcast app. And hey, you can be on the show by tuning in as we record live at twitch.tv/Spotlight Games Pod every Tuesday at 8 p.m. Eastern time. And if any of you fuckers live outside of America, we had the little daylight savings time happen recently, so it's a different hour for you than what you're used to. But all you got to do is follow us on Twitch so that you're notified when we go live, so you can be part of the conversation. Cayman?
Yes, sir.
A lot to discuss this week in our little podcasting universe corner of the world. We had finally last night, I was able to record with Jeremiah and his wife Jalissa episodes 1 and 2 of the final season of HBO's Succession. Did a little deep dive, a little different than the Last of Us show that we did, only because, this isn't an adaptation. We're not comparing it to another thing, but still fun conversation, still talking about those dirty little Roys and that just those problems that they have being rich little fuckers.
Do you think that like life is imitating art, or art is imitating life? Because today, Patrick, while we record, Donald Trump has been indicted.
Sure.
Do you think that there's a connection here?
Because
aren't like they're just like always on the verge of being arrested for shady shit, and not the plot.
Well, so definitely in previous seasons there was a big there was a cover up happening, and someone was going to have to take the fall. Light spoilers, but it's still kind of the through line of the show as it's called Succession, the through line is who is going to eventually take over the business. But there is it's not too far off that Donald Trump was arrested, because the Roy family, they're basically in charge of this fictional universe is Fox News. So it's all connected.
It's all connected. Somehow.
It's all connected. But Cayman, we also have a new episode of Safe Trash Cinema.
We do, Patrick. We do. This episode actually is brought to you by Patrick. He was the one that picked the movie out, and that movie is 1992's hybrid of live action animation and just 100% horniness, which is called A Cool World, or just Cool World. And we have a lot of issues over the title Cool World because it doesn't really work in terms of a title. That movie's fucking crazy, dude.
Crazy.
Not sure what else to say. The movie is one of the weirdest things we've covered so far. And we've covered some weird shit, right?
Yeah.
Weird movie. Brad Pitt's in it. Gabriel Byrne. Kim Basinger's in it. It was directed by Ralph Bakshi from Fritz the Cat. Very famous cartoonist. It's a weird fucking movie.
Weird.
It was just Patrick and I also. So it was a weird episode just all around. And
it was great. I had
a great time recording, great time editing it. Great time releasing it. So if you haven't checked it out yet, go on over. It's currently live on all of your favorite streaming services. So you can go listen to the two of us talk about stuff. I don't really
Noids and doodles.
Noids and doodles, and don't fuck cartoons and stuff.
Yeah, I mean, that's the one rule. Cayman, why don't we continue to talk about stuff by talking about, excuse me, what we've been playing. So, last week you gave us a nice, deep impression of Resident Evil 4 Remake. Since then, I have played a lot of it. I also finished Chia, but I'm about 7.5 hours into Resident Evil Remake. And the short version is the game's fucking so good.
Game is so fucking good, Patrick.
It's so good.
Now I'm playing on just standard difficulty. Yeah. And the game is tough.
Yeah.
Even on standard.
Yeah.
How are you feeling?
So I'm playing it on hardcore mode.
Yeah.
So when you boot it up and you go to start playing it, I normally, like, if there are more than 3 options, if there's more than just easy, normal, and hard, I like to do like whatever is second to the top. So like if there's like baby ass baby mode, easy, normal, hard, nightmare, I like to do hard.
Sure.
So this one, there only being 3, I was like, I don't know. I think I'm going to do standard. But then it said for people who have played Resident Evil 4, I think it said like multiple times or something like that. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to trust the developers of this game. As someone who has played that original several times, I'm going to go for it. And I thought I made a huge mistake about an hour in.
Sure.
The first interaction in the village with the chainsaw boy, difficult. But there have been a couple instances since then. So if you've played the game, I am now in the castle. Not necessarily a spoiler, but that gives you an idea of how far in I am. There have been a few moments where I'm like, man, this is really tough. But honestly, I am having a lot of fun playing on hardcore mode. And I think it's because it's making me have to really think sometimes, like, how do I get through this? Not just like, how do I survive per se, but like, I need to get creative or else I won't be able to get through this. And so that's been a fun challenge. And so far, none of the situations have been so dire that I'm like, all right, I'm going to have to start this game over. Because about an hour in, the first time I started to maybe flirt with the idea of starting over, I realized you can't change the difficulty once you've started the game.
Yeah, not on hardcore at least. Yeah.
So I was like, oh man, this might be a huge mistake. But I feel like I've gotten through some of the toughest parts of the game by this point. And I feel like if I've gotten through those, then I can do anything in this game. But it's so fun.
Yeah. Here's the thing. It's definitely interesting. Where you are now is where I started to get like my first hangups, where I'm like, okay, this shit is getting more and more difficult.
Yeah. In terms of like number of enemies and that kind of thing. Yeah.
Yeah, and so where you are now, like everyone is now starting, their heads are all popping off,
Yep.
and they're all turning into these, and then there's a new one that you might not have seen yet.
Like the thicker
Yeah, okay,
head
so
pop.
okay,
Yeah.
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 And
I just had the first interaction with the thick ones.
there's a certain point in the game in which you are in an area in which there are just, it just feels like a never-ending swarm.
Yeah.
And you got Ashley and they're just keep picking her up. And I was like, I like entered the encounter with like almost no ammo anyway. And like, god damn, I got to a certain point where I was just like, okay, I just need to take a step back. I mean, just like once I died a couple times, I was like, I just got to figure out like what to do next. Like, how do I get through this area? And I think this is what I love about the game is there
Yeah.
are ways to be able to do things that are different than like what you would normally think. Because like, when I first approached this area, I was like, okay, just I take the swarm and then I kill the one person I need to kill that's making my life hell.
Yeah.
Because like that's kind of how it is. Like so many people, I was like, I can't just get up there and I have to keep track of Ashley.
Was it the section where she is like on a different level than you turning things?
No, not the water level.
Well, this is that the water level where she's like there's like a walkway that she's trying to activate for you, and there's like
the water level.
Is that we call that the water level? Okay.
Yeah, that's the water level. It's very designed very differently than the first one. But that was another one where I was like, I ended up making it through the like one walkthrough, and was able to get through without dying. But I was like, I literally walked out with like one handgun bullet, and that was all I had.
Yeah.
I was like, Jesus.
I just finished that before we recorded, and I had so much ammo, and it's all gone.
Yeah.
When you said the water level, I thought there's a point earlier in the game when you go into this like swamp area where like everything like it's all covered in water. I thought that's what you meant by the water level.
No, so
sorry, continue.
So the reason we all like address it as the water level is that was the water level in the first one. We didn't have those like swampy. You had the lake, but you couldn't explore the lake. You were just there to kill the big El Drago or whatever the fuck that big lake monster was. So like this is the castle water level. This was like the most notoriously hated level in the game. They definitely reworked it. And yeah, you go in like fully stocked with ammo and then you walk out with nothing.
Yeah.
And then that kind of really sets up the rest of the castle is just constantly being in situations where you have like just enough ammo to survive.
Yeah.
And this one part I was like, this is just get too much. And there's like RNG, right? When you like destroy crates or like crates or pots in the castle, there's a lot of pots. And so like I'm in this level and like I died a few times and I'm like, this fucking sucks. I'm like trying to figure out like I don't have like zero ammo. I have no shotgun shells. I have like one rifle bullet and I have like handgun ammo and SMG ammo. And that is all I have.
Yeah.
And I don't even have a lot of handgun. It was like 60 SMG bullets, which 30 SMG, an entire clip will take one enemy down.
Right.
With an SMG. The thing fucking sucks. I don't even know why I use it anymore. Like I've got other guns. I could probably use it or better. And so I kick the pot and the first thing that pops up is a fucking hand grenade. And I was like, oh boy, I know what I'm about to do. And sure enough, I changed up my tactic and was able to end up like looping enemies around and like just taking them out one by one. It's really cool. I do like the inclusion that flash grenades will just immediately kill any of the Plagos head popper things.
Yeah.
I'm where I am right now, and it is very different. They definitely have changed up the order of things, but like I am now underground.
Okay.
Yeah, which is not in the normal order of the way that this game works. Like if I remember correctly, this is not something you do until after you kill like one of the big bosses. You then go underground.
Yeah.
I am now underground. And I'm like, well, this is fucking weird. So like, it is really cool. They throw in so many curveballs in this game, dude, that are just like, man.
That's my biggest takeaway so far is, so I mentioned a couple weeks ago on the podcast, I replayed Resident Evil 4 on my Switch within the last year and a half, maybe a year ago.
Sure.
So like I have a pretty decent memory of this game, but it's still like, I still like have forgotten some things. I feel like I didn't recognize so much of the first half of this game.
Yeah.
In a good way. Like this really kind of in a way doesn't even feel like a remake. It really feels like a reimagining at times. A friend of the show, Mondo, who was on the show several, I mean, months ago at this point, tweeted out today something along the lines of, there was like just like one of these random Twitter accounts. It's like, what's your game of the year so far? And it showed Resident Evil 4, Hogwarts, Dead Space, and another game that doesn't matter for the sake of this conversation. And his whole point was, I hope that outlets don't necessarily give game of the year to remakes because it might set a precedent. And I responded, I was like, I agree with you on Dead Space, but I don't know that I agree with you yet on Resident Evil 4 because of I'm about 6.5 hours in, and it truly feels like a totally different game.
Yeah,
don't get me wrong, like there's a lot to recognize here, and there like all of the big giant beats are still the same, but like there are entire sections that I'm like, this didn't exist in the last game. There are entire like paths and ways that the story is unfolding is like totally different. Like where you kind of made this point last week where Dead Space was like 1-to-1, this is certainly not that, and that is so exciting to me. Also, Terry in the chat, hearing y'all talk about RE4 remake is really making me want to check it out, but I just know I'll be too scared to continue.
No.
I don't think you will.
No,
I don't think you will. There are moments that I got pretty jump scared earlier today. There's a moment where you fall through a floor. That's all I'll say. And I about fell out of my chair. But that's like the only time I've been scared this whole game. I think, and I'm a little, you got to remember, like, I'm a little baby back bitch when it comes to horror games. I think I've only been like jumped once. And then there's only really been, I think, like one part of the game that I've experienced so far that I've genuinely been like, I don't like this. And it's very quick, it's very short, and it's pretty easy to get in and out of. Patrick, you haven't gotten there yet. You'll know exactly what I'm talking about when you do. But like outside of that, though, I definitely think that they've found like a really good balance on like making a horror game that you have like full autonomy in, and you really can like dictate how scared you want to be. Because like if you like, you probably will have a worse experience if you are scared by these games if you play in hardcore mode. When you are, not only are you scared by like there's enemies everywhere and the spooky things, but you're also like terrified because you're like, I have such limited ammo and stuff. Like I would say if you play the game, like play it on assisted mode. I've watched a streamer play assisted mode, and it really is like a couple shots to the head, enemy's done. Whereas like you can definitely tell there's a huge leap in difficulty from assisted into standard. So like I would say like, and that obviously is going to lessen your fear factor if you're not as scared going into an encounter because you're like, holy shit, I have no ammo, I have to get tricky, and I've got all the, and that like ratchets up your anxiety, I think. And so like I do like that you really can like, you can fuck around with it to get the intensity level that you want. I think I'm most excited about, because once you beat the game, it doesn't matter. I think you have to beat it on standard or hardcore. You unlock professional mode, and professional mode has all sorts of like weird shit involved with it. But like, I'm actually kind of excited. Like I might skip hardcore and just go straight into professional. Because there is like some bonuses that you can get in professional mode that like you don't have anywhere else, where you start with like different guns that are already like partially upgraded. Oh, cool.
So it is like a little bit of a different experience. And like, I kind of want, but I also am like, I am kind of wanting to do a new game plus run on assisted mode and just fucking speed run the shit out of it. And like, actually, because that was like my favorite thing back in the day, was like going into new game plus and then like, how quickly can I beat this game? But man, dude, and this is one of the first games I think I've played in a long time that I've legitimately been like, I'm ready to be done with this game so I can play it again. For sure. I'm like, and I also like feel like I'm taking time playing through this one, whereas like I feel like Dead Space, at a certain point in Dead Space, as much as I enjoyed playing that game, like I don't know, there's like a certain point where I was like, yeah, this is very much Dead Space, and this is exactly what I remember from Dead Space, and I got what I needed. We're like, this game, I'm like, I am so ready to play this again a completely different way. And
I at the time, like I still really, really loved the Dead Space remake. But at the time, not having played this, I'm so glad that Dead Space came out first, because if I had played this and then did Dead Space, I would have been really disappointed with Dead Space, seeing what Resident Evil 4 has done with it. Because it makes me like, I've also toyed with the idea of doing a New Game Plus run on Dead Space. I had started one like right after I finished it, but I only played it for like an hour. I don't think I'm going to go back to do that now, because I will on Resident Evil 4 though, for sure.
And I do think it's important too to point out that, like, I do think it was great that Callisto Protocol came out right before Dead Space. So we set the bar low.
Yes.
And we went into a really good game, which is the Dead Space remake. And that set the bar high. And then I think it's important that we do set the bar high sometimes, because then when you get a game like this, like, you really can appreciate like the level that this game is on compared to other games. Like it really is like very different.
Yeah, I agree. Last thing on Resident Evil 4, Terry in the chat, he says, I'll for sure try the demo at least. Be careful, because the demo has no difficulty settings and can be a little on the difficult side. And that's like one of the most famously high stress situations in the game. Granted, it is like one of the first situations in the game.
And it is, I think, so far for me, I would say it is top 3 probably most difficult areas of the game. Easily. Yeah.
But not to say that that's not fun, but that if you were to like maybe go in on assisted mode, like Cayman was saying, the demo might potentially scare you off. No pun intended. But yeah, I'm really excited to keep playing this game, and we have a bit of a stacked like second half of April, so I kind of want to like get through this soon so that I have time to get that before Burning Shores, and then before even more so just Star Wars Jedi Survivor. But we're gonna wait and see what happens.